always have to do soft and very pronounced consonants, especially at the end of the words that I say. It's always like
I
I don't
need
know.
to speak. I was watching what movie was it? I was watching some movie where the guy was having to repeat saying his lines like tres tristes tigres tragaban trigo in so that's the Spanish version, but what movie was it? It
Yeah.
was even a famous movie. Oh, it was The Great Gatsby or something like that.
To speak properly, it is necessary to enunciate every syllable. Example: 20 dwarves took turns doing handstands on the carpet. 20 dwarves took turns doing handstands on the carpet. Example: 20 dwarves took turns doing handstands on the carpet.
No, it was something else. Anyway, hello, this is Chris. We're already recording.
I don't know. I figured out one of the reasons why you're not getting more views on here, and it's because you start and end wrong.
How do you start?
Well, I mean, obviously, hey guys, you gotta look right into the camera.
Oh yeah, and you gotta have music.
Hey
and stuff.
guys.
What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from the Quartering End.
Or you can say like there's this irritating YouTuber that I tried listening to named Grim, and he always starts out by saying, "What's good, YouTube?"
And you gotta
then you have
remember
to
to
end
like
it
and
by saying
subscribe.
like and subscribe.
Hit a subscription up there in the top. Make sure to call your friends. I got a merch shop over there.
I've got a couple YouTube channels, and my wife used to help me out with them, and she'd be like, "You gotta say like and subscribe at the end."
I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please do click that red subscribe button down below. We'll talk to you again real soon.
I'm not fucking doing that. I'm not a fucking sellout.
I'm the same way. There's been like 2 times I've linked to any of my things, and I've never once advertised any of it. And that's part of like when people try to come at me saying that we're just bitter people who need to have the spotlight and limelight. I'm like, I'm sorry. I will never put in 1/billionth of the time advertising for myself that John Glynn does and has over time.
Yeah, we're never gonna have any billboards.
Yeah. Even if something happened and somehow it got big, I promise there would be nothing like that going on ever, you know. But some of my favorite channels I follow, they don't need to do anything like that either. But I thought you were gonna go right straight to that we needed a naked guitar player or something like that. that works too.
I thought of like stealing one of my wife's sports bras and just popping up on camera, playing guitar and shittily and grinning.
I guess that goes in line with talking about fake personae or something like that. Actually, you could get really into the postmodern stuff if we want to go right into the postmodern stuff. So much of what Lacan was always talking about was putting on a mask and putting on like a fake personae mask. That should be super deep and super interesting to talk about. Zizek loves Lacan, but that's the majority of all he talked about was people being fake, not really being themselves, but then they go deeper down inside themselves and they realize there is no real self inside myself. You can imagine like postmodern psychoanalysis. Like what, if you don't know anything about Lacan and I tell you do a postmodern psychoanalysis, what's that going to be? You know,
it sounds just like self-doubt all the way down to its logical conclusion. Like to me, it sounds like
you're Lacan. You did it.
I did.
But just put a bunch of big fat words in there that don't make any sense. Really.
To me, it sounds like I imagine in postmodern circles there's one-upsmanship in every circle, but like
they're for
the
sure
one-upsmanship in postmodernism seems like it would just be insufferable. It'd just be this nihilistic hellhole where everyone's being fake, and then somebody's like, "You're being fake just by saying that," and then somebody tries to one-up them even more and be like, "There's no such thing as real. Everything you could possibly, there's no true self." It just goes down and down and down. That's what it sounds like.
Absolutely. You got it. You nailed it. You nailed the whole genealogy of what the postmodern thing was. Plus, those French guys, wanted to make sure their words were bigger and bigger and wilder and wilder. they had a bit that some of that is the French language. Even Foucault would kind of lament it sometimes. He'd say that I have to use these big, weird, dumb words all the times because nobody will take you seriously in France if you don't do them. But so Lacan was the king of that.
Well, I finished Demons last week, and that's the last of my 5 Dostoevsky books I'm going for. And
you got through 5 Dostoevsky? I think I've done 2 all the way through, and I've only poked through Demons and Notes from the Underground.
I did Crime and Punishment, Brothers Karamazov, Notes from the Underground, The Idiot, and Demons.
So that's like a year right there. I mean, it depends on how fast you're going through stuff, but you actually read like the physical copies, right?
Yeah. I
Is that a
actually I have
year?
that. No,
Okay.
I've got them all in this year. But I get a lot of time to read at work, so.
Oh, gosh.
But now it's funny because a lot of 19th century Russian aristocrats, they were pretty fluent in French, and like Demons is interesting because it's hilarious, and it's anyway, one of the main characters is this like washed up intellectual who's just kind of useless and leeches off his rich friend. But like you have to read the hard copy of that one because like a good 30% of his dialogue is French. And it
Yeah.
has the translation at the bottom of the page, but it's just funny and snobby, and he tries to act all intellectual and smarter than everyone because he uses French all the time. It's just funny.
Like I said, those guys did it, but Lacan was the king. So the first Sokol experiment, the one before James Lindsay and Bogosian, that one was done by Alan Sokol. That's why they're called Sokol experiments, where they fake postmodernism. The first one he was able to fake by just doing straight gobbledygook. Bogosian and Lindsay and Pluckrose, they had to put it inside of social justice concepts, and they only realized that because I think they first tried to do something just gobbledygook like Sokol, and then they realized that no, it had to be coherently stupid with a wokeness. But Sokol, the guy who did it in the 90s, who was making fun of Lacan and Deleuze, and I've been reading Anti-Oedipus by Deleuze, and holy crap, man, like it is just gobbledygook. It's just straight gobbledygook. That's all it is. But
And Anti-Oedipus.
yeah, Deleuze, he's the guy who kind of like shot off that sort of more right-wing postmodernism. You got Anti-Oedipus and A Thousand Plateaus, but he talks, the whole idea is you got to start thinking schizophrenically. And you read the book, and it's basically like he's already trying to show off how to think schizophrenically. So the whole entire thing is like, he's like writing a sentence, and the next thing you know, he's thinking about his bowel making a movement. And that sort of stuff, because he's both aware of his bodily processes also while he's talking and all that stuff. And it's
Artificial
stupid.
Schizophrenia.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway,
That's ableist as fuck, man.
I guess that kind of fits into what we were planning on talking about, because part of what we were talking about is kind of like faked personae of some of the people that we watch around here. And I guess we'll get to some more fake persona later, but we're going to be mean to them. So we wanted to talk about the subject of being mean or being nice. And I actually wanted to springboard off of that, talking about the stuff that's been going on with Peterson lately, which might not make sense right at first, but I think it kind of does. Peterson had a video. I don't even know if I want to show any of it, but I got to pull up just in case of that video where he called out Christian churches.
Mm-hmm.
What do you remember of it off the top of your head?
Well, I remember he said, I don't know much about Christianity, honestly, like the different sects, but I remember
I think he's just talking to generally all of them.
Protestants, and
did
he said Protestants are the worst, and then he said Catholic Church is close behind or something like that.
Oh, did he call them out specifically?
Yeah, he did. And I also remember what else did he say? He's telling us all people exactly like us to go to church.
Yeah.
I'm like, I probably won't.
Even though he doesn't go.
Yeah, I'm like, well, you go to church, asshole. Fuck you. I'll read your book, but
I remember on some episode way back forever ago, he said for him going to church was something like watching The Simpsons or something like that. And that's something he said like 6-7 years ago.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Let's listen just to a second, because what I remember most, he's calling out the churches and those types of things to be more interesting to young men. I don't know if that's how he said it, but
well, he's saying be more like, he's saying you're chasing young men away, and that's
yeah.
true.
Let's see if we can catch a second of it, because I remember specifically Jacob Hansen, the guy who's been appearing on Midnight Mormons lately, said the last 3 minutes are fire. So let's try to catch that
properly. Who cares what you believe?
I just laugh
Why
at
is
him.
it about you? Do you even want it to be about you? What if it was about others? What if it was about your duty to the past and to the broader community that surrounds you in the present? What if it was incumbent upon you and vital to your health and willingness even to live, to rescue your dead father from the belly of the beast, where he has always resided, and to restore him to life? Once again, to the churches, Protestant, you're the worst at the moment.
I thought that was pretty funny.
I don't know why I forgot that part.
I laughed my ass off at that part because, like, leading up to that part, I'm just thinking, would you be a little more specific? Like he's saying like like, well, what if this is vital to your life? And so and I'm like, well, explain why it would be vital to my life. And you're being vague. And then he's just like, Protestants, fuck you. Fucko.
Like Orthodox. Invite young men. Put up a billboard. Say, young men are welcome here. Print some flyers and put them in a box by the billboard. Signal the existence of those flyers with an arrow with the words, more information about attending here. Tell those who have never been in a church exactly what to do, how to dress, when to show up, who to contact, and most importantly, what they can do. Ask more, not less, of those you are inviting.
I think that's the gist of it, especially the last part of the calling it fire or whatever. I don't know if the Mormon people that we know would call it fire if they'd been called out specifically too. But that's one of the things I wanted to point at here.
I think there's a growing number of Mormons who want their church to be called out in exactly that way.
Yeah, that's true.
Like you get, I mean, it's small still. It's like Midnight Mormons would. I don't know, they might say that
they'd like it, but they're younger guys. They're not the guys in charge of it. So you have guys like Paul Vanderklay here, who's been like he says on his screen here. If you say at the end, he started doing videos. I mean, he kind of got his following on YouTube by being a Calvinist preacher, starting to comment on Jordan Peterson videos, and through that he started getting a ton of like an online ministry going, even though he already had his in-person ministry.
I always feel like an asshole whenever I talk about like what the ideal for religion, kind of like how Jordan Peterson is trying to talk, because like I listen, I hear him, and I'm like, those are all pretty good ideas. I honestly, at this point, I feel like I would rather more people believe in God, and I would rather more people be, decent, like kind of religious. I really don't want to be one of them. I always feel like I'm trying to say that like, oh yeah, other people need it, but not me. And I know that like there's scriptures about me because of that, because I know that there's pastors and stuff that talk about me. So there's some of you that think church is good, but not for you specifically. Yeah, that's me. And
I usually think of the lukewarm gets spit out. I even was thinking of putting like the name of the channel, something about that, like spitting out the lukewarm or something.
It's funny you bring that up, because that's one of the scriptures that's very prominent in Demons.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I got to read that one all the way through. I poked around with it, but I haven't read the actual.
Honestly, I'd suggest it. The first half is really slow, but the second half is awesome. It's really good.
So this here, I'm not going to click on any of it, but you see his whole thing here. He's a bit flustered with it. He's a big Jordan Peterson fan, and he's just a bit flustered with the, come on, Jordan, you're calling us out here on. And thinking you don't really like they say here, the church's goals and metrics are entirely different from an influencer or a public intellectual. Part of what he's pointing at, and it wasn't just him. I suddenly saw a bunch of pastors who were kind of, yeah, Jordan Peterson, yeah. Oh, I kind of like what he's saying. Yeah, like I don't agree with everything, but I like what he's saying. And then suddenly he said this, and they were all just like, ooh, Jordan. They're real mad about it. Just the same way he did a Muslim one afterward, and a lot of people were just kind of rolling their eyes because he's like, Muslims, you got to get along. And a lot of people are rolling their eyes at it. But this guy's, one of his points he's making about it is this, the church's goals and metrics are not the same as an online influencer. I'm going to pull up this thread by Vocal Distance real quick. I think one of the reasons none of it works or doesn't work the same way has something to do with niceness. This is Vocal Distance. He's a Christian. Again, he's read a lot of postmodern stuff. He's always on with James Lindsay. I put him on this a bunch.
Yeah.
I think this is kind of interesting because you and I and Flip were talking about it too, and we're all trying to figure this out, but maybe not asking the exact same question. He kind of puts this thing out because I'm sure he saw all these other different pastors come out and say, hey, screw you, Jordan Peterson, right after that. But he says about Jordan Peterson, the inability of nearly everyone in elite, respectable mainstream institutions to understand the appeal of Jordan Peterson is a symptom of the very deficiency within those institutions that created the void that Jordan Peterson is stepping into. We were talking about how the lefties don't understand him and freak out, and that's half of what's interesting is how they react to him. And half of what's interesting here is how churches react to him too. I don't know that he lands on the answer either himself. It's kind of a long thread. You see, I don't need to read every ounce of it. But the whole thing is him kind of pointing out, like saying, hey, there's still something about that we're not getting, that Jordan Peterson's somehow getting, but we're not getting. And what is it? And we got to stop. And because all those other pastors were suddenly like, shut up, you don't even know. But I think what Vanderklay was pointing at, and I've always kind of pointed to this when I get in arguments with atheist types about being able to replace religion with new morality and kind of the Sam Harris-y philosophy stuff. And one of the things I always try to point at them is your big galaxy brain, like maybe you can even land, you can find the thing. You guys can find the Gnostic answers. You can land on the stuff. You're not going to be able to deliver it to people through this boring Dan McClellan delivered podcast. Just very didactically delivering in the most rationalist way the answers that you found out of what everybody's morality should be. That's no way to communicate morality across the board.
It's also tough because, like, I don't know, there's a lot of cool philosophy out there. I got about halfway through Meditations, the Marcus Aurelius book today, and it's pretty good. He's got a lot of interesting things to say. And that's probably one of the philosophy books that's probably the most well-known one I can think of. But he evokes God all the time, God or gods. And I'm just not sure how to do it with philosophy. Like, I'm not sure how to, because with religion, the stakes are so high. There's a God. And with philosophy, it's like, we're pretty sure this is a good idea based on this and this. And it's fun to talk about.
And here's a message to those young men skeptical about such things. What else do you have? You can abandon the churches in your cynicism and disbelief. You can say to yourself narcissistically and solipsistically, the church does not express what I believe properly. Who cares what you believe? Why?
This is why Peterson is so helpful to young men. He talks to them like a drill sergeant would. This is not about you. You need to surrender something. You need to lay something down. Now, you can't really do it, though, just by asserting that there's something bigger than you. It really does have to be bigger than you. It has to be the living God.
But then you get philosophies like, I don't know, utilitarianism, which are insane.
Yeah, there's the other flip end of it. There's a guy I've been talking to who's pretty into Sam Harris and his meta philosophy stuff. He might listen to this. And he kind of believes Sam can, through all this data and through the studying of game theory and all this stuff, that you can land on what exactly should be the best morality for all, and we can figure it out scientifically. Because Sam Harris is always trying to bridge that gap of the ought and the is. He's like, we can use science, we can use the is to create an ought out of the is. And he's just dead set on being sure that he can figure that out.
Yeah,
but
I don't think so.
One of the problems with it is that even if you did figure out the maximal thing, how do you get everybody to agree that you figured it out? How do you get everybody to jump in line with it and follow it? And even follow it to a point of like they take it in down to the souls of their hearts, deeper than anything that they've ever been able to do. And even then, maybe you're able to get some people who are into galaxy brain philosophy stuff. If you look at any one of these channels, you'll see all the time people talking about this stuff. If people start getting too into philosophy and they have a big following, some portion of that following, like the Midnight Mormons, will say, oh, we're talking about philosophy. We're going to get all sorts of comments of people saying, oh, philosophy's so cringe. All this is boring, you know, and all that sorts of stuff. And I've seen that happen on other channels too. Even some anti-woke channels, they're like, oh, this guy's talking too much about philosophy stuff, and they turn off. I think that's one of the things religion always had. I think it's Jonathan Pajau pointed to that some of the imagery around like the birth of the Christ child is a little bit of the answer to that. Inside of the scenery of the birth of that, you have shepherds and wise men, you have a star and a manger, you have even the animals represent different types of things right there. And the concept of it is that religion is the thing that can bring the high galaxy brains and the low story-based knuckleheads, whatever, if you want to call it that, to be mean. I that's probably not, I think it's one of the things I heard somebody say today is like, one of the most ridiculous things that people ever said is trying to act like farmers are troglodytes. Because if you think about it, farming is the most civilized thing. It's more civilized than the city dwellers. like farming is the essence of civilization, and people starting to act like that's somehow lower on the scale of
I'm somehow
civilization.
better than you.
Not even better. It's like it's more civilized. Being a farmer is more civilized because you're actually cultivating what keeps alive. That's what civilization is. But
So I mean,
it actually came.
I love talking. Like I don't get bored with philosophy like a lot of people do. I don't know a ton about it, but it's always fun to talk about. I guess I'm pretty much on the you can't really derive a moral system scientifically. I'm pretty sure I'll never be convinced that you can. And part of that is because like I don't know, you go to philosophies and there's problems with God too, right? Like believing in gods. Obviously, you can take advantage of that. But I don't know, with philosophies, it's like it's pretty easy to convince people. There's always a leap of faith to the first principle on which you would base a philosophy. And it's easy to get people to leap to let's maximize happiness, and then you could easily explain to them like a system, a purely consequentialist system that maximizes happiness, where if I enslaved and tortured just like 50 people, everyone else in the world could just live this beautiful, awesome, perfect life. And would that be moral? Because you're maximizing happiness. If you measure the units of sheer terror that those 50 people are experiencing versus the units of pure happiness that the rest of the billions of people, there's like no competition. If that's your only justification for morality is maximizing happiness, then you could do so through some pretty evil means.
Yeah, there's all sorts of weird utilitarian answers that you could become pretty evil about. But even beyond that, I think about just the concept of one certain individual person's life, and so much of what Peterson talks about and made clear to young men is that some of the answers of getting towards happiness is suffering, getting through certain types of suffering. And religion always kind of had that built in a little bit, maybe to a point where it gets extreme or too far, but it was one of the things that integrated the concept of suffering gets you there. And whenever you're dealing with like a nice scientist who wants to be nice and make everything and nerf the world for everybody, it's almost like they can't even they can't factor in anti-fragility into that at all. Anti-fragility is this idea from Nassim Taleb that some bodies, like your bones are anti-fragile. They won't get stronger, or your muscles are anti-fragile. They won't get stronger unless they're put through stress. And there's concepts that part of your psyche and brain and all sorts of stuff will not get stronger or better unless it's put through extreme stress that would be probably unethical to do in a controlled environment. I don't know how else to say that. Like if we got to a world where we were gonna put some baby incubating the perfectly developed psychologically baby in history, and you just like put them through, like, I don't know, the Truman Show, what you'd have to put them through some extreme psychological damage for them to be the most, so if you're trying to do that in like a fake environment, and you're the test doer, you're the god or whatever, to make that baby that's strongest, whatever, by the time it hits adulthood, you will have had to have put it through some extreme stresses that are unethical to do purposefully. And
Yeah.
that doesn't make any sort of sense when you're talking about people who are trying to land on like perfectly ethical futuristic systems. But then, like, again, you always have the problem of like, even if you landed on that thing, how do you get everybody to buy into it? You don't have the stories that unites the high and low, that unites the guy who just likes the stories and the galaxy-brained philosophers who can do whatever sort of Gnostic, whatever thing with it to try to make sense of all of it. And I think that's always been interesting to me in like the concept of what Christianity does, and it's built right into that imagery of saying we're going to unite the galaxy brains and the people who just like their Marvel movies.
You got you got the meme. I think I might have talked about it last time. One of my favorite meme formats now is the IQ spectrum.
Yeah.
On the top of the bell curve, it's like, I don't believe in your stupid sky, daddy, but then I'm like, the biggest idiot is like, God is the man in the sky.
Yeah, I'll have it.
I'll
post
150 IQ is the God is a man in the sky.
There's a lot of those memes. And that's where the term midwit came out of too.
I love that term.
Because a lot of people talk about like midwit's kind of the dumbest person there is because there's weird conversions between the lowest of the IQ and the highest of the IQ on certain concepts.
Horseshoe theory.
Yeah. That's kind of one of the things that I think about with it. And no matter how many like different people try, no matter how many like the outside atheists, whatever, try to recreate a moral system, I do not see them being able to beat that. You can't didactically get on top of it and push it down. I do not see that being a possibility in our lifetimes. But
Well, and
the
it's pretty damn impressive, like what we have come up with. Like just some of the ideas in the New Testament are pretty, for their time, like just straight revolutionary. Like maybe don't kill that woman just because she cheated on her husband. Like like that's a shitty thing that she did. But like you guys might just be trying to satisfy some bloodlust. And if that's all it takes to kill someone, then you guys probably got a lot that could be killed for. Of course, I saw this summation of progressive Christianity. It's my favorite like one-liner on progressive Christianity ever. And it was like if Jesus went to that woman and said, "Go forth and keep on sinning."
Well, I think that's one of the reasons Peterson called out the Protestants the hardest, because I don't think there's anywhere more than inside of Protestant Christianity than you see people reimagining everything with this upside down inverted liberation theology type bullcrap mixed in with a modern woke stuff going on.
Protestant, you're the worst at the moment. Ouch, right? Ouch.
One of the reasons I think it's so hard, and Vanderklay was exacerbated, and even some others, is that if you're the one actually running the church, and this is why I think it gets all the way back to the niceness thing. It's the same thing with anti-fragility. What attracts the men? What attracts the young men? And it's roughness. It's roughness and harshness and non-niceness. And one of the reasons that church gets so boring is Vanderklay has to worry about keeping it nice for the little old ladies that are going to the. He can't have these like fiery speeches at church and call everybody out and cuss maybe here and there. And when most of the people are going to his constituents are these little old ladies who are these little waspy people. But you've talked about before how the concept of niceness might drive you nuts, and maybe that's in the online world, but I believe it in regular life.
Oh yeah, I'm not talking about online. I'm talking. I think people are more willing to be mean online. Seriously, some of the most combative people online, I meet them in real life and they're just timid as hell and like scared, don't really want to talk about the things they want to online. And I think it's because I don't think you can really put it through your subconscious mind that there's an actual person on the other side of the screen. And I'm not putting myself above that. I think I probably can't either. But as far as the niceness goes, here's my Jordan Peterson moment with the whole niceness thing. It's like, Mormons, you're the worst about this. Like, this is absolutely like, I think a lot of people in Western culture and American culture they deify niceness, but Mormonism, absolutely. I always say this, the core value I learned from Mormonism was don't rock the boat. And that's just such a stupid thing to learn, because sometimes you need to rock the boat.
Yeah, it plays out in the working world, because I've worked in what I do in HR in Las Vegas, and I've done it in Utah, and there's a huge difference in the cultures. And if you talk to anybody who's worked in other cultures, they'll even notice it coming here to Utah. And there's kind of a particularly Mormon-y culture here in Utah. And one of the things they'll notice about people is they'll be very, very, very passive, even the bosses. And there was a problem of people being too aggressive when I was in Las Vegas. But strangely enough, there seemed to be like less psychological trauma in that than there was here, where they're extremely passive, and then they find out that they're doing everything wrong and they didn't like them and they never liked them all along, and they're irritated about them, and they need to correct everything when they were going along thinking they were doing everything fine. Whereas down in Vegas, the person was screaming at them from day one, kind of giving them the Gordon Ramsay style stuff, but they knew right where they stood with the person all the time.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's something to do with Mormon culture a little bit too. But I mean, I think it kind of blends into online stuff as well. It's just that there's so much of what's going on in Christian world, the stuff that they're letting in, and most of what the wokish people will say to them is that they're being not nice enough, and that they're meanies, and that they lack compassion or whatever. But like so often happens with the iron law woke projection. The truth of it is actually the reverse. The other side's perfectly happy being mean constantly, and then the side of the religious people are just trying to figure out how to integrate and be nice and work with and deal with it and handle it and all that stuff. And they have no idea how to fight or push back or stand up. And then if they see anybody else doing it, they'll shut down, they'll shut off, they'll say, oh, that's just not nice enough for my taste,
Me too. Then it's settled. Boys, you're going to tolerance camp. Tolerance camp?
Welcome to Tolerance Camp. You are here because you would not accept people's differences, because you refuse to accept the life choices of your fellow man. Well, those days are now over. Here you will work every hour of every day until you submit to being tolerant of everybody. Here, intolerance will not be tolerated. Today, we will be using the finger paint. You will make a painting that shows people of different races and sexual orientations getting along. Finger paint! Finger paint! You will not make any distinction between people of different color, people with different sexual preferences. You will accept everyone. What are you finger painting?
A bear?
Ein bear? And bear has nothing to do with accepting people of different races.
I didn't know what else to paint.
Start over. You will finger paint what we tell you. Go! Faster. 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 Faster! Are you done? What is it? What have you done?
People of all colors agreed holding hands beneath a rainbow.
Good! That wasn't so hard, was it? Now do it again! Faster! Faster!
I don't know. I guess my sample size from this is, being in Idaho where there's a ton of Mormons, and like I'll go to work and sometimes I'll just complain because there are a lot of, I work for the government. There's a lot of very, very lazy people. It's a reverse incentive structure. It incentivizes you to be lazy. You fail upward. And I'll complain about somebody who just won't do their job. And it's funny because I'll go on this complaint and everybody around me is like, yeah, no, that guy doesn't do anything. And then there's always somebody at the end of the rant that feels bad and goes, yeah, but he's a really nice guy. I'm like, that doesn't mean anything. Does that negate everything I just said? He's a nice guy. What do you mean? Are you saying that he's not actively mean? Because you understand, there's no social incentive for him to be mean. And there's a lot of social incentive for him to be nice. If we were in like the second grade in the 80s, yeah, maybe it's cool that he's nice. Maybe it's cool that he doesn't step on other people to get up. But like, no, he's worthless. Like that's it. His not being mean to me does not redeem him in any way of being worthless.
Yeah. The whole entire scene, especially in the ex-Mormon scene. So I was just learning a little bit more. I was re-listening to some people talk about Socrates, and what irritated people so much about Socrates is just he was like a tedious tester of everybody's philosophy, of everybody's theory. That's really kind of like almost like we view him as one of the first real philosophers. Obviously, around him there was other philosophers, or actually sophists, who all just kind of felt that the world was who could argue the best for your lie, and they didn't care if anything was actually true or not. And Socrates was the first guy to kind of start testing, just irritatingly and meanly testing everybody, and he got killed for it for his efforts in that. But I sometimes feel like if I don't know if what we're ever trying to do is anything more than just going around and testing and putting a test and kind of poking at and nudging at what everybody's claiming or saying they're doing or whatever. And I think it'll come off as mean, especially because we'll get salty and jokey about it. But I don't think it's anything other than just testing it. And from the start, Flip and I have always said, come, let us test you and you test us. We'll test each other. That's the whole concept of what we're supposed to be doing. But
it feels like I actually like being tested. Like I'll find people who are willing to talk about these weird moral hypotheticals, and we have to weigh them back and forth. And sometimes I'll say something that they'll be like, actually, that's stupid for this reason. And I'm like, oh my God, that's actually stupid, the thing that I just said. And I actually enjoy it. And so if I find somebody who I think is like me, who will enjoy that test, or that sort of jousting or whatever, then I'll be less snarky with them or something.
It's hard to find. I don't know if that we really actually ever find it. I mean, here and there you'll get in like Twitter thread arguments back and forth for a while, and it'll go. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe we'll get to a point, but you see, like on the larger internet or whatever, stuff gets down to actually people having some debates here and there. I've never like really seen very much of a debate in the ex-Mormon world, because I think a lot of ex-Mormons still have that same sensibilities of, don't talk to that guy, he's mean, he tested me, he got real testy with me, or teasy, or something like that. And I just don't know. Even inside of other little groups, even inside of the lobster group or whatever, they don't much like. Here and there they'll be testing. Obviously, I'm not saying that's 100%, but that's another reason why I like the Midnight Mormon. They test and they put up to the test, and they're one of the only ones willing to do it. And Streeter will get out there and do it in the places where people are actually talking. But then most of the other people who should be taking a hammer to themselves or going out and taking the hammer to others, because they're obviously talking like they have the hammer to break the other thing, they should be ready to see if their thoughts and ideas hold up to a hammer as well.
It's just people who in 2014 would have branded themselves part of the skeptic community.
Yeah.
Now that they don't, it's funny, they don't use that word quite as much. I remember that word being thrown around constantly in the ex-Mormon circles. Skeptic and critical thinking, those were big things they talked about. I'm hearing both of those phrases less and less.
Well, I mean, that
less,
kind of
they're less fashionable.
Less fashionable. Well, there's a weird angle of it too, because it always kind of feels like people who just get out of Mormons, they've kind of been in a time warp of stuff, and they don't know that there's already been these kind of waves that have come and gone and stuff. But there's so much about Mormons, especially like John Larson, I'd say, and the guy we're going to poke fun of right now, who are stuck in like 2005 YouTube atheism. I don't know how else to say it, but I think that's kind of why people get off the term of skeptic, because it sounds like a kind of a tired concept from 10, 15 years ago. Plus, we've also watched the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe go right down the tubes with how strict they're being on stuff. Although Skeptoid, or what's the other one? Michael Shermer's magazine. Michael Shermer's still good. He's still great. But
see, I got into internet atheism at its decline. It was going down by the time I got there, because I got in like when the amazing atheist was really big.
Ugh.
And I was like, I remember watching a bunch of him and being like, I know I'm supposed to like this, but he's just so yelly and cringy, and it's just not all that smart. And he's gone really nuts.
You literally just want it so you can talk to minorities. That's all you care about when you say, freedom of speech, man. That's the only freedom of speech you care about. You care about the freedom to be a fucking bull.
This is straw man. This is just crazy.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what you believe. Okay?
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
Yeah, he was never that impressive to me. He was a little bit interesting because he'd yell.
I think that's why I don't really
like whatever. But
I think that's why I don't really like the quartering, because he makes me think of the amazing atheist. He just kind of looks
Really?
like him.
Yet the
don't give me this freedom of speech horse
just
shit. You don't
today
believe in it.
that he's
You don't
untouchable.
care
A
about
video
it.
that,
None
in
of
my
you meet the
opinion,
standard I've
is
just laid
deserving
out.
of a community
So
guideline
piss
strike,
off out of my comments.
both on his highlight
you
channel
know
and on his main channel.
Wanker.
It's not really. He just kind of looks like him, and he doesn't yell, but he says things in a similar way, and maybe just sort of
I think the
accidentally
quartering-
poisons the well for me.
the quartering rubs Flip really wrong too.
Yeah, I can't like get into him. They seem like such surface level criticisms that he has.
I don't terribly mind him. The only thing about him is that I don't even know that they're criticisms. It's almost kind of just like he's telling you what's going on out there a little bit. And every single one of his videos that are 15 minutes long could be 30 seconds long. Like he can just say, this is happening right now on Twitter. Thank you, the quartering. That's enough. I didn't need your 5-minute spiel about your coffee that you're selling now and
Get
and all that sort
woke,
of stuff.
go broke.
Yeah, and you say like all the things. You're just telling me about this little thing that's going on Twitter, and actually, if I'm on Twitter myself, I saw it already, so I didn't need you to break it down for me. Every once in a while, he sees something that I hadn't seen. I appreciate that he points me to a thing because I didn't see it, but I don't need to listen to the full 15 minutes to find out about it because he's not going to really add any commentary to it. But there's some level of it, and I've heard him talk on all these other channels about how to grow your channel and how to grow your business and how to sell the food and all that sorts of stuff. And there's something that this feels like a bit, griftery, to use that word, about it. But
It's like you just see. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm being too hard. It just kind of feels like the guy that's like, here's how you grow your business. I was like, you mean like just get in the right place at the right time with maybe that's simplifying it.
he was kind of one of the first guys just kind of talking and pointing out what was happening online with these different things. And so people would check in with him, kind of just like your daily update on what's going on with the woke versus the non-woke, especially like in Gamergate. A lot of people got their names, and it's where the concept of skeptics became sort of cringe, because a lot of the anti-Gamergate people were originally called skeptics because they came out of the community of fighting Christian videos. So anyway, that sparked a whole community of internet atheists versus internet religious, right? Just back and forth, little YouTube things. And that's kind of the first YouTube arguing that was ever going on. And then Gamergate happened. And almost all of the skeptics at first were against the game journalists who were trying to depict it in a certain way. Just the social justice activists, especially at that time, there was no negative connotation around that yet. So people started getting away from the term skeptic because it started sounding like anti-social justice back before social justice had its own PR problem. And but
Well, we
anyway.
gonna sign up? Are we gonna sign up for a free session here? I thought about it. I seriously thought about like signing up, and if I thought like that I wouldn't get in trouble for recording that free session, then that'd be funny.
I was trying to like look around to see somebody said what it cost. I couldn't find anything anywhere.
I imagine the free session is just to figure out
how much you're willing to pay.
What expensive package he's supposed to sell you.
Did it have his biography down there?
Yeah, his biography.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we started teasing this guy a little bit last time. Maybe I'll put up here the deconstruction video with a Nuance Ho.
Has to precede the deconstruction process, because if you aren't going to be honest, what are you even doing kidding yourself that you're going to deconstruct? The reason why I bring this whole topic up with them is that in the deconstruction process, there are going to be so many construction ends. Radical honesty, as I've talked to people who've deconstructed, and with my experience as well, as I've talked to people who've deconstructed, and the fact that the people who have deconstructed, the people who've left.
I guess we wanted to wax wise and talk about being mean and all that stuff, because we actually have thoughts on like the philosophy or concept or ideas of that, because it's interesting to talk about. But we're actually just trying to justify why we're going to continue being mean.
We're just bullies. Okay, he never says where his expertise is from, and that's a big deal for these woke lefties, right? I mean,
yeah, I got in
trouble. I got in trouble on the Lobsters group the other day for saying that like 99 times out of 100, I could tell you objectively if somebody is male or female at a glance.
And somebody got mad at that?
Yeah, they got mad at it. They told me, where is your expertise in gender? And I was like, by virtue of being a fucking animal, we're built for this.
Joking?
No, he wasn't joking. I got into a big back and forth with a couple guys on it. I'm telling you, that group is stupid.
Sure.
They were lying. They were totally lying. Sorry. Everyone knows that you can tell gender. Everyone knows it. That you can tell gender by like looking at it. You walk through Walmart. If you tried to consciously guess the gender of every single person in there, you would probably get it right every time. And then he told me, you're not talking about objective truth, because you said probably every time. You said mostly every time. I was like, no, I'm saying that almost every single time it would be objectively true.
We'll go out of 1 billion times, almost every single time.
I could pretty well assert, and no, it was just, and I just wanted to like shake the guy and be like, you're lying. I don't believe you at all. You know this. Everyone knows this.
I just Carter on Unsafe Space just earlier tonight was ranting about people trying to get you in mud moats about stuff that's obvious, and one of them he's talking about is like he found this lady who said wanted all these studies to say that physical appearance mattered and how people selected their mates, and the lady of course went to college to try to disprove that in every way possible, or at least say no, look, I've got all these variables and studies and all these things, and say it actually is not a big deal at all in how people choose their mates. Another one he's pulling up is that having self-protection, like having a gun, is just like an obvious thing that would be a better thing to have in a situation of being attacked than not. And then of course they can like create all sorts of different studies of saying no, that's actually makes everything worse.
Having a gun makes somebody attempting to kill you worse.
Makes you less safe in self-protection.
Yeah, okay.
It's just a lie. It's just just one thing that's on its straight face. And he
is
says
that the end game of sophistry, is just to make you doubt obvious things?
Yeah, that's part of it. And I think one of the things he was saying, I kind of agree with too, is that they're trying to be an energy vampire of you. They're trying to take away they're trying to take away your time and your energy for this.
So the first one is tactical ignorance, aka playing the hatchling. Now I have to credit this one to Morgoth's review, but it is where the rest acts like they know nothing at all, like they've literally just been hatched into the world, and so ask questions and yet more questions about things that everybody knows. I came across this in the debate over gender roles. What's a traditional man? What's a traditional woman? As if everyone and their uncle and his dog doesn't know. The aim of this tactic is not because they want answers. It's not honest engagement. What they're trying to do is to wear you down, or else find some minute point on which they can focus and then quibble. You have to call out this nonsense straight away, rather than answering their questions. Deny it from the very off.
Because they don't want you going and challenging. If they just keep you busy arguing about their bull crap, you can't go and say it to somebody else.
I've gotten to the point where when I'm asked for a source on this kind of thing, I just say no.
Sources, please.
Yeah, I had that with Mormon Enlightenment. I got in an argument with that Crystal lady, which she's probably mad at me for calling her a lady because she says she's non-binary, but I'm not. I don't do the they them shit. I'm not. I will misgender the shit out of you. I don't really care. She was talking about how these Republicans are calling people groomers just for being gay. I was like, no, I don't think they are. I think they're calling people groomers for trying to groom their children into believing in gender ideology. Gender's not ideology.
Studies,
it's
please.
An objective fact. Do you have any sources? Do you have any sources that you can cite to tell me that sex is binary? It's like, no, I'm not gonna do that.
I've got a cell phone. My girlfriend can attest to it. That I sit there all the time just taking another click of a screenshot, click of a screenshot, click of a screenshot, click of a screenshot of another situation that's just out of control. And a huge portion of those in my phone right now are situations of grooming situations that have happened and that exist. And half of why I save them up is because when that person says, hey, show me those grooming things. And then when that moment comes, I'm always just like, oh, don't make, I can show you, what's the number? Do you want 400 of them? You want 400? You want 400? Like, we can do that. And but do you really want me to do it? Because I promise you I can show you 400.
I need to start a grooming folder just
yeah, and I should too, so it's easier like that, because then I get lazy and I go, but I still have to go through my phone, like if I have to do all this stuff. But it still just drains you. It drains you to think of, like, I can't even start to tell you how all the different things that I've seen and taken pictures of over the past 5, 6, 7 years, and I do it for these exact moments. And then the second you ask for it, I just go, oh, no. Shut up. You have no idea how much there is. Well, you should have an idea, and I bet you do have some of an idea too, but you're playing stupid. What do you think he says his credentials are for this? What do you think they really are?
That's what I was...
Like, if you took a free session, and asked, could you delineate this out for me? What do you say?
He wouldn't say anything, because if he had credentials, he would have listed them right there.
So he'd get out of it in some sort of way. Like, I thought about it a lot when I left the church. That's my credentials.
Yeah, my wife's got a ton of friends in this life coach world, and
oh, really?
Here's the
Who,
problem.
they're
is
purchasing it or they're being life coaches?
both. But the problem is they think I'm on their side when I talk about how I don't trust most therapists. And they'll be like, "Yeah, I don't trust most therapists." I'm like, "Yeah, neither do I." And they're like, "Yeah, we're bros now." And I'm like, no, you're honestly, I think that the number of shitty life coaches is probably identical to the number of shitty therapists. I don't really
Yeah.
think it's you could probably find
Yeah,
somebody that
there's
could give you pretty good advice without having a PhD in psychology, but
that's true. Just like we joked about last time, that if this guy did bust out his PhD, I wouldn't even blink at it of thinking much differently about
no, absolutely not. That's the
Yeah.
thing. Because it's funny to me that they also like he's marketing himself for the side of this that is huge into credentialism
Yeah.
and just doesn't and they kind of they're like, well, he's on our side, so we're gonna just ignore it.
But like what kind of person? Like really, I mean, you're getting out of Mormonism and you think, boy, I could pay this guy and I'll get some help.
Okay, see, I have a theory about this, and I think the reason it doesn't make sense to you is the same reason it doesn't make sense to me, because I feel like I never really fit in with Mormons.
Oh,
And so
I guess that makes sense.
because I talked to my wife about this, and she says when she left Mormonism, it was like there was this void
Huge void
inside her that
of
she
what to
needed to
do.
To
What
me,
else?
it just kind of felt like there was a boot that was on my throat my whole life, and then it was no longer there, and it was awesome. So I didn't.
Yeah, I think you and I are simpatico with that concept. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think maybe that's why this doesn't make any sense to us. I
Like
think,
they kind of felt like it was a canoe carrying them somewhere, and we felt like
yeah.
it
So
was
most Mormons are looking for another canoe.
well, I
Maybe not
guess that
most, I
makes
don't know.
sense. So explain this thing to me too. Just like we're trying to explain the other thing. He didn't invent this, but why is this a thing?
The duets where it's just half of the screen is your
It's half the
fucking
screen,
face just
and the
going
other
like,
half is just you smiling at it. And there's something about it too that like that it's not the first time they watched it, because I think it's supposed to be kind of like a reaction video or something like that. But that would make sense if it were a reaction video, but it's not a reaction video. You know, it's not the first time they watched
no,
it.
no.
So he's like, I think he's looking at his own face right there and making sure that he's smiling right at the right time and the right, like perfect like, eye winky.
It's funny. It's also funny that he's laughing at this one because
Oh yeah, Ricky Gervais is bad.
well, in this specific special is bad. I don't think this is the one he just did.
Was this
but the one
this
before
wasn't
it.
the most recent? Yeah.
No, I'm pretty sure this is from Humanity. And Humanity, I thought it was funnier than his most recent one. That was in 2018. And he has some just stellar Caitlyn Jenner material. So if this guy were to watch that, he'd be like problematic. So that's what I want to do is just stitch Ricky Gervais telling really problematic jokes right next to his face.
Women. Oh, God. You know, the ones with wombs. Oh. Those fucking dinosaurs. No, I love the new women. I know the new women. They're great, aren't they? You know, the new ones we've been seeing lately. The ones with beards and cocks. They're as good as gold. I love them. No, it's the old-fashioned with and now the old-fashioned, they're like, oh, they want to use our toilets. Why shouldn't they use your toilets? For ladies. They are ladies. Look at their pronouns. What about this person isn't a lady? Well, his penis. Her penis, you fucking bigot. What if he rapes me? What if she rapes you? You fucking turf whore.
Okay, back to this. So one of the things is too is I bet you somebody else clipped out that duet. So he didn't even take the time to clip out that thing. So there's obviously some other person or atheist or whatever who already clipped it out. So all he had to do was clip it next to the thing and do his smile and get 1,600 likes for.
How many calories do you burn when you fart? 67 calories, you guys. In that case, I should burn about 5,000 calories a day.
Let's see.
In fact, the first one would be, why did you make chocolate kill dogs?
That's a good reactioning, man. That's some top tier reactioning.
Spend some time with you, just the two of us. We can make it if we try. Just
that's
true.
all that, like, what are you gonna do? Just because you're not getting your full body, it's just your face because you're holding your phone right in front of your face. Oh shit! I gotta unnaturally just put my hand in front of my face so you can see that I'm reacting.
Type head out of their proboscis. Four fangs dig in, and then with those fangs, they inject venom. That venom paralyzes and sometimes even stops the heart of its victim. And then they sit there and slurp up the innards like a slushie. Now, okay, this is really cool. You see how it's completely slinked out like this? Notice that coloration. You see how purple it is?
Yeah.
It's all peach colored here and purple here. That's why they're called bloodworms, because their insides are actually dark red and the skin is semi-translucent, and you can see that coloration right through there. Wow, that's cool.
You can see like little bubbles running through the body.
Yeah, isn't that wild?
Oh man, it's
This
so
stuff is,
dumb.
yeah, that the duet thing like that is cringe outside of him, but
So these
When you say that theists and atheists,
these types of things here, he's a life coach or something like that, and we started out. I think we cut right in when we were already going into it about the way people talk and present themselves, and we made so much fun of Dan McClellan doing it last time. I don't even think I put up the best examples of how Dan McClellan does it in our videos. I mean, he's just always on that thing of trying to sound like Sam Harris. This guy's got a way of talking that we are trying to figure out if he's like, I was saying, I've got a mush mouth. I need to pronounce words better and stay on the microphone better, but I would also jump off a cliff and hope most people would stop listening entirely if they felt I put on a bow tie and was sitting here kind of in a perfect little way trying to talk perfectly into a microphone like some guy smiley announcer person.
both base their beliefs on faith, it makes me think that you're trying to say that one approach is just as valid as the other, which is demonstrably not true.
Demonstrably not true. Oh, okay.
Demonstrably not true. This is a Utah guy, right? I don't know of anybody around here with that accent.
So it's kind of like how
Scientists-
I through this Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing. I was
Oh, and
seriously-
Johnny talking all weird.
It was the first time I realized that he's American. I seriously didn't know. Not just American, but
From
Kentucky. Yeah, I was like, I 100% had no idea. I thought he was some type of weird British because he's sitting there talking about. She made a grumpy on the bed, and I had to go for a mega pint. Like, what accent are you doing?
Depp, so you were saying Miss Heard was jealous of your career?
Jealous would be an appropriate word. I would also add curious. She would have many perpetuously playful ideas that I was some sort of otherworldly creature, such as the time she brought home a trident, which I assumed was from her role.
You did not learn that in Kentucky.
It's so weird. It's so weird. But this is weirder to me. But
This doesn't really engage
unless there's some reason for it. I'll call all the Oxenfree if there's some sort of reason for it. But it just seems I'm always kind of picking on performative crap, and I can't help but pick on performative crap. Like John Larson, he gets angry and all stuff. I don't think anything about John Larson's performative.
I don't think so. He's just mentally unstable.
Yeah, when he's angry, he's angry. I'm not thinking he's putting on a performance or a show right there. It might come up in the future. I just got done reading the book The Machiavellians earlier today, and
That's
to
why
me,
you kept talking about that.
yeah. Well, but it also goes along with the dark triad stuff, which because one of the dark triad traits is Machiavellianism. It's psychopathy, Machiavellianism, and what's the last one? Just narcissism too. A lot of people pointed at Trump as like being like an overt narcissist, malignant narcissist. It's usually kind of easy to pick that out. It's easy to pick out if somebody's being that or is that type of person. But I think Machiavellianism, especially coming out of like people supposedly coming out of religion where they think they've been duped by people who put on one face and it's really another thing going on, which is their perception of that. It seems to me people should be highly, highly, highly in tune to that going on, to people putting on one face to kind of manipulate you into something, especially if that face is a face of absolute benevolence And not just, well, there's the victimhood side of it, but there's like this benevolence and here for you and type stuff, but they're actually just being a fox and trying to get you to manipulate you into
Master of
buying.
empathy.
Yeah.
Mythology, rather than wanting to believe, he wants to know. An honest scientist will take.
It's not normal. I can't even hear the words because of it. Like,
I know.
So going back to that other thing, like most of his arguments are like 2005 YouTube atheism stuff. I was zing on that, and I do just like saying that just because something's an old argument doesn't mean it's a bad argument. But part of the reason why it's so 2005 YouTube atheism is like it's almost like they've learned to regurgitate those talking points the same way like missionaries learn. If missionaries are going to get in Bible bashing, they want to get really deep into Bible bashing. You kind of learn a script. You learn a script, like here's the answer you say if somebody brings up this chapter, or here's an answer that you say if somebody brings up that verse. And there's like this YouTube atheism that you know the script of the answer to each different question, and you say it exactly the same way. You learned it from Matt Dillahunty, you learned it from Sam Harris, you learned it from Christopher Hitchens or something like that. You've got a script in front of you. You're not going to tell something new. You're going to give us the Penn Jillette argument. You're going to give us the Matt Dillahunty argument. You're not going to tell us something new like it's coming from your own thoughts. You're going to give us this rehearsed YouTube atheism answer.
If God real, why bad thing happened?